The webinar is started. I'm changing my phrasing because I'm sick of hearing myself every week say the webinar is not live. But I see some friends joining us. Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to another week of the lunchroom. As ever, I am Mark's sidekick. I'm Sarah Schofield-Manser. I use the she, her series of pronouns. I'm a white woman with dark hair. I've got headphones in and I'm sitting in a swivel chair that I strategically use to hide the mounting pile of coats in the background because I'm doing a little bit of spring cleaning at my house. I just really quickly want to review some sort of Zoom hygiene and logistics with everyone. We will have about 45 minutes of discussion as usual. We're reserving the last 15 minutes for audience Q&A at the end. You can submit questions for our guests using the Q&A feature at the very bottom of your screen. Please note that the chat feature is disabled. A few other housekeeping things. I would like to acknowledge that I'm calling in from the Indigenous and unceded territory of the Massachusetts, Pentucket, Pennacook, and Wabanaki people. And the land that Oberon and the Loeb Drama Center occupy is the unceded territory of the Massachusetts people. Two more things. If you would like to turn subtitles on, we do have automatic subtitles enabled. There's a little button at the bottom of your screen, 3 dots, says more, click it, and it should give you an option to show subtitle or show live transcript. Turn that on and you'll be good to go. It's not perfect, but it's pretty great. And then I do want to read our audience behavioral expectation statement before we invite our panelists on. So we will not tolerate anti-Blackness or racism of any kind in our buildings, nor at our online events. The ART is unequivocally opposed to hate and centers anti-racism as a core value. We expect everyone in the ART community, including you, our audiences, to uphold these values. We aim to create an environment that is uninhabitable to racism and discrimination, and where all BIPOC staff, artists, volunteers, audience, and community are seen, heard, valued, and provided the opportunity to thrive. This work is only possible when we do it together, and thank you for being our partner in it. And if you'd like to learn more about that policy and the statement that I just read, I am going to drop a link in the chat for you to be able to review it on your own at home. Wow. Mark?
Hi, Sarah. Thank you.
So happy to have you.
It's been a while. I've had a few weeks off from the lunchroom. You know, I've been vacationing. I've just been enjoying my.
Mark, I'm going to mute you.
No, I'm actually moving. So you'll start to notice for the next few episodes, you're going to start to see more and more boxes overtake me in the background.
I love it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Lunsford. I'm the artistic producer at the ART. I take the he, him, his series of pronouns. I'm a white man with a close cropped brown beard, a fresh new cut, brown, short brown hair, and I'm wearing sort of a blue button down with a purple thermal underneath. Now that we've had this new Arctic blast hit us in these last couple of days. And I'm calling in from Somerville, Massachusetts, the unceded territory of the Pawtucket people. And I'm very, very excited to be back today. And I'm not staying with you all day today. I'm just getting the honor of introducing our guests. So what do you think, Sarah, time-wise?
I think we're doing okay. We have one more panelist who's joining us. He's having a little bit of technical difficulties on the back end. So I'm sending them their link again, and you're going to see a surprise guest slide on screen. But I think we're ready to transition to the meat and potatoes of the hour, so to speak. Yeah.
All right. Can I bring Nina Fahari on for our lovely host today? Nina, can you join us?
Hello, kids. How are you all?
Nina, so happy to have you.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for being here. Nothing says lunchtime like a great drag conversation.
You know, like a big old black snack. That's what says good lunch.
Super, super excited. All right, so I'm going to bring our other guests on, and Sarah and I are going to leave you for a great conversation. So first and foremost, let me bring on Jayden Jamison, just JP, and then I think Kareem Khubchandani just joined us.
Yes.
Kareem, were you there?
Yes.
Hey.
Yes.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, I am the potatoes.
I'm very excited for this conversation, y'all.
I am scared. Listen, I'm just a willing servant trying to facilitate a conversation about drag. Pray for me. Pray for me.
JP, you might have just given us something to use for the lunchroom here on out.
Yeah.
Great. I love that.
Ourselves as a dish. I think
We'll talk about that soundbite becoming our, I think, signature sign off. So we'll discuss that offline. But I think at this point, it is time for Mark, you and I to gracefully bow out and just absorb the conversation from behind the scenes. So amazing. Yeah. We'll see you all later.
Here. Thank you all for watching.
Bye.
Yeah. We'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. As they've said, my name is Nini Fahari, mother of the House of Fahari. I am excited to be your host today for Lunch with Lunsford. This is a very historic moment. Never has there been a host that wasn't on staff at the American Repertory Theater. It's kind of like, for me, when Harry Belafonte got to host The Tonight Show, or at least that's how I'm imagining it in my mind. So again, this is a historic day and a historic event. And I'm joined by some heavy hitters, some icons in their own right. Jayden, Just JP, and Kareem. So I would like to welcome the three of you to this conversation. And again, as a good queen, I came prepared with a little cheesy topic. Why not talk about the art of drag? You see what I did there? ART, American Repertory Theater, the art of drag. That's our conversation for today. This is supposed to be a casual conversation, a couple of drags getting to know each other, getting to understand each other. So we're happy that you have come to witness this casual conversation. Not only it's like the lunchroom, it's like the living room. Be prepared to be engaged, right? What are we eating? Let's have a good check-in because, we really don't have food. So it's like, in my imagination right now, I am eating, maybe a hot dog. And I know that it's maybe from Chicago, so it has a little pizzazz. Let's see, Jayden, what are you eating in this lunchroom conversation?
Sushi.
Ooh, sushi. Just JP, what are you eating in this lunch?
Pupusas. Pupusas, yeah, con curtido y salsa, like any good Salvadorian would. Pupusas are for all the time of the day.
I'm on my way, Jayden. JP, with Jayden. We're coming. Kareem, what are you eating?
I'm always eating cake.
Always eating cake. Good to know. There's so many places you can go from there, but I'm just going to, stay right there for a moment. Always eating cake. Should I? Could I? No. All right. Welcome again. Thanks to the ART staff, Mark and Sarah, for putting this together. Starting our storytelling, we want to know, who are you? Who are you, right? This is the moment where we're getting to know you, getting to know all about you. Who are you and who are you wearing? So bring us into who you are. I'll start. Nini Fahari, mother of the House of Fahari. I'm a Southern girl, right? My drag is really based off a Southern aesthetic and the Southern women that I grew up with, including my grandmother, like in deep down, my grandmother, right? I am wearing a black top with this kind of ropish, gaudy necklace that is this is cobalt blue. I don't even know what color blue. Some gaudy glasses. My hair, which is the most important feature, right? When a girl like me is trying to get in the get up, which wig will I wear? Is inspired by my good girlfriend at the ART, Noreen Major. I decided to be a redhead just so you would have some solidarity in this moment. Nina's never done red before, and it's changed my whole attitude. Noreen, these bundles are for you today. That's who I am. That's what I'm wearing. Someone want to start? Who are you? Who are you wearing?
I'll start. So my name is Kareem. I use any pronouns. I'm a professor at Tufts University in theater, dance, and performance, and women's gender and sexuality studies. And I also perform as LaWhore Vagistan, everyone's favorite South Asian auntie. And you can follow her at this link. And LaWhore and my everyday self are inspired by my mother and her friends and all my aunties. And so I'm wearing a button-down top that was designed by my mother. It's multicolored with little sort of football shapes on it. But she's been my fashion icon for my entire life. And so, LaWhore wears saris, and I wear clothes that are made by her, designed by her, because it's important for me to pay tribute to the migrant women that, through their creativity and play and nonsense and collective cooking and clothes making, really gave me a lot of resources they took away the pressure to be masculine, and gave me resources to live otherwise. And so that was really important to me.
Thank you, Kareem. Someone else.
I love that. My name is just JP, and you can follow me. I'm gonna drop my link.tree/dragqueenjp on the chat. It did not go, it's all panelists. No, it has to go to everyone. I'll figure it out in a minute. And I am wearing my own merch because I am a drag queen, and you can get it. You can get my merch.
Yes.
Look at it. It's so cute, isn't it? And my drag is like a psychedelic 80-year-old retired super grandma from El Salvador who currently lives in Miami, Florida. Yeah, but now recently with COVID, I feel like I have evolved into perhaps I would say a nightmare-ish children's book character, because all of my new silhouettes are like very exaggerated and big, because I am exaggerated and big, and I'm so happy to be here. And I'll send it over to Jayden. Oh, my cat is here.
Oh, you're not going to introduce the kitty?
No, he's deaf. He can't hear me anyways.
Okay. Jayden.
Hi, I'm Jayden. When I go as Jayden, I use he, him pronouns. My legal name is Nguyen Tran. My drag aesthetic is, I am Vietnamese. I'm a Vietnamese refugee to the United States. My drag aesthetic is pretty gay boy twink. It gives me the opportunity to peacock out and do the whole glamorous thing while taking a whole new interpretation of what masculinity means. So that's my drag aesthetic. I'm wearing a flannel right now because I don't know where this cold front came from. It is cold as hell out, so I'm feeling my lumbersexual fantasy. And, for everyone's lunchtime fantasy, I'm not wearing any pants. So just imagine me just laid out in just my sexy flannel shirt. There you go. Lumbersexual.
Thank you. Welcome to you. Welcome to your drag aesthetic and your people. Again, the ones that we honor, the ones that we create these personas around, some known, some unknown. I think it expands the room. So welcome for you all. And continuing into kind of getting to know you and getting to know each other and understanding both the specificity and the complications of drag. The next set of questions, again, around just, self and what I call this moment of like identity reclamation, right? So the strategic choice to claim an identity, reclaim it, and kind of shape it like it's clay. What's in a name and what is your drag journey, right? How do you arc that story? My name is Nini Fahari, mother of the House of Fahari. Titles are important in drag culture. And that Nina is, again, the Nina Simone essence that I have in drag. Nini, because, I'm somewhere between my grandmother, Nina Simone, and Nene Leakes, depending on the day and how many drinks or which wig a sister wears. And then Fahari means pride in Swahili. So I used to run an arts organization in Dallas called Fahari Arts Institute. That's also why I'm known as the mother of the House of Fahari. But in that name, I think, again, there is so much pride. And really, as many people have said, the diversity of a gendered identity, if I look at like Black womanhood, how we could be bookends and kind of one of the same. So you didn't want to catch Nina Simone or Nene Leakes on a bad day, but at their best, they are, shining examples of what I try to emulate. My drag journey is really interesting because although I've been queer since, I came out, really making a choice to adorn myself in this way was strategic because I'm not necessarily good at performance in terms of performing in the club or the bars and things like that. So I often felt like, is there a place for me? Now, Nina Nini Fahari has a different persona that's Big Mama Nina, and she's a lounge singer. She can sing the blues and jazz. So that was kind of my inroad. When I could sing jazz and the blues, I found a character to kind of shape. But what's in a name? What's your drag journey? I want to start.
I can start if that's okay.
Yeah.
And I'll send it over to Jayden after me. Well, just JP. It's very self-explanatory. If you know my government name is JP. And just JP to me means that there isn't really any clear differentiation between my drag persona and my persona. I also was very queer since I came out of the womb of my mother. So there wasn't really any doubt in my mind that I was a superstar since the beginning. Delusion. Convince yourself. So now that I discovered drag about 4 years ago, through some of my friends, through a little drag show on TV that you may know or may not know, called RuPaul's, and through community, because I was in community, like I was able to meet so many great people who are great at drag. And when it came time to pick a drag name, I didn't feel like it was somebody else. And that's super legit because for some folks, there is that clear differentiation. Like this is like my out of drag persona and my drag persona. And I'm just extra all the time. So this is why I chose just JP, because I think it's it shows how I don't have like an on or an off button. All my buttons say on, so all my buttons turn me on. So come press my buttons.
Beautiful, Jayden.
There's so many pieces to my journey to Jayden, but I'm just going to go over a lot of main points. Like I mentioned, I come from a Vietnamese refugee family, and in birth order, I followed 4 boys. And in my family, they try to enforce a lot of strict gender roles. And I think, I was already from the get-go, I was a tomboy and trying to navigate, traditional Vietnamese gender roles growing up in America. And so I was trying to figure out how to blend those 2 different identities without disrespecting either. And so Jayden happened because the whole entire time growing up, I was told my opportunities were being limited because I was a woman. You can't do that because you're a girl. You can't do that because you're a girl. So that was way before I realized I was gay. And so when I realized that piece of my identity, trying to understand intersectionality and everything else. So Jayden was in response to not feeling enough, lack of validity. And he was the voice I needed at a point in my life where I felt as when I couldn't speak up for myself without experiencing consequences for expressing my opinion. So he happened so I could have a voice. It was also at a point where Jayden Jamison came out of spinoff of the porn star Jayden Jamison. realizing my sexuality and not feeling like a desirable, seen person as a person of color, Asian in the gay community, because there's not much representation. So, I was trying to lean into feeling good and sexy in a community where I didn't feel seen. So that has been my journey. So, I give a lot of credit to Jayden for helping build WIN. He has brought me a long ways because he was able to be the voice when I didn't feel strong enough to have my own voice, my own regular everyday life.
Thank you, Jayden. Kareem.
I'll give you LaWhore's intro that she uses on stage and then maybe explain a little. So my name is LaWhore Vagistan. LaWhore, like the city in Pakistan, but with a W, because I'm here to work and because sex work is real work. And Vagistan, like Pakistan or Afghanistan or Uzbekistan or Hindustan or Bangladeshistan or Sri Lankistan. But after the British and the Dutch and the French came in and cut it all up, I, like a good post-colonial queen, like to suture it back together like a beautiful Vagistan. So that part of that, doing all that, right, like the geography inside of the name is because my family is originally from Pakistan. But because we're Hindu and we're displaced out of Pakistan, and I grew up outside of the subcontinent altogether. There's this way in which I don't have a claim to that land, and that I'm supposed to choose between India and Pakistan, right? But those borders and those nations are fictions. So creating my own fictional geography for myself in my drag name has been important. And I started doing drag because I was hosting a queer Bollywood night in Chicago and I couldn't find a performer. And so I just did it. And I was always fascinated by the queens who used to perform at these South Asian nights in New York. And they really, well before RuPaul was giving us the option to do drag, there were these other sort of community-based performances of drag that whether at house parties or in nightclubs, that were teaching us that gender nonconformity can do beautiful things for us and create community. And so those are the people who inspire my drag, alongside my aunties who also did drag, who always used to dress up as men and dance with each other and flirt with each other in community performances.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. I think, what I appreciate about what everyone had to offer, it really highlights a strategic use of drag and drag culture and drag performance as kind of personal and societal and kind of cultural liberation, right? Whether that happens organically or happens strategically, it is the form that we go to strategically for these kind of possibilities. And I think in a world where both RuPaul's Drag Race can show vast diversity and limitations around, what drag culture can be, this conversation and you and the work that you do and how you do it, kind of expanding the notion of, what drag culture is. Interesting enough, while we don't have time to go steep into like drag history or things like that, ART is attached to Harvard. So one just feels like, we got to give you a little piece of a nugget of education. But I think the history of drag and its development over time is, worth its own examination. What I'll just mention, in America, you can trace it back to, William Dorsey Swann, right? Which was a Black ex-slave at the end of the 19th century who used to host balls in DC, like in 1880s and 1890s, in drag, who called himself the Queen of Drag. And that's one kind of lineage. And even when we think of queer liberation, many of our minds go automatically to like a Stonewall moment. And William Dorsey Swann was also, known for being arrested. There's court records that say things like having an unruly house, right? Or a brothel or things like that. But that same kind of resistance has existed even when there wasn't mass acceptance of one identity within a culture, but definitely not in society. So I want to continue to talk about this theme of liberation of self, but also blowing up the notions of what performance can be. And I think for Kareem, and definitely Jayden, and even you just hearing about your cultural lineage and how you're trying to reclaim something. I would say that there's drag culture in every indigenous culture, right? Depending on what you think are the different components of drag, and think that it's not something new. It's as old as the existence of man. Like every ceremony that we see in this cultural form has a drag component to it. So Kareem, I'm going to start with you as a kind of performance scholar at Tufts and someone who strategically have brought not only drag culture from, your origins, your family origins, and every place that you've been in community, but into the classroom and into scholarship. So I don't really have a question, but just can you introduce us to that kind of act of queer liberation?
Yeah. So there are a few ways I approach this. One is that all the books that I write start with drag in some sense or the other. So I wrote a book called Ishtail, Accenting Gay Indian Nightlife. And that book starts with my search for South Asian drag queens, and that, I couldn't find them in the places I was looking. And so I became one and started teaching others to do drag. But it also taught me that, okay, I'm not seeing the drag queen like I see it on RuPaul's Drag Race. But what are these other kinds of performances on the dance floor, in a house party, friends teaching each other how to wear heels for the first time or how to tie a sari for the first time, because their mothers or aunties never taught them because they're men, right? So just this kind of education that happens through drag, I was seeing in these other places. So that's what I ended up writing about in the book, even though I wasn't writing about drag. I'm finishing another book called Decolonize Drag that is thinking about how colonialism has solidified gender binaries in such a way that we only think of drag as one thing. We think drag is cis people of one gender dressing as the quote unquote opposite gender, right? And that once we start breaking that apart, we start seeing drag everywhere. And we start seeing that drag is limited by class and race, or what we think as that excellent form of expensive drag is limited by class and race and caste and geography. So really dismantling colonial binaries can help us see drag in more places, give more people credit for their artistry. And the last thing I'll mention is that LaWhore Vagistan sometimes shows up to teach my classes instead of me. And I use this in various ways. So after the Trump-Biden election, I knew it was, that morning was going to be a rough morning in my introduction to queer studies class. And so LaWhore showed up and did karaoke with the students, and asked my students to do impressions of Kareem, because she had never met Kareem before, right? But just that opportunity to play in classroom and to defamiliarize the classroom is really important. And then there are other days where LaWhore comes in and is like, oh, so what have you been learning, right? And it's this moment where they're like, oh, we have to explain to LaWhore what Kareem has taught us. And so just having this other moment where students encounter me, but they encounter me differently, has been a really productive teaching device.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Moment of transparency. Thank you, Kareem. I just finished teaching my first class in drag because I had to prepare for this. So this is a quick drag. This is like in between classes. Like, how can I do it, right? Quick drag, no lashes. And my students in my 12 o'clock class, our first hours here. So they'll get to see Nina for the first time. And I actually keep her away from the class because, I'm trying to keep my good Emerson job. And she's a little radical, right? But I think, again, now this beautiful opportunity to use drag and break up, especially in this moment of COVID teaching, the norm and have excitement. My students clapped. They were, I was so embarrassed, but they were like, yay! And I was like, this is so awkward, but, anyway. Jayden, speaking of that, you've been a part of, the Tufts journey that Kareem is creating, but you also are an educator in your own right. So you want to talk about your work in performance and teaching drag performance and that connection.
Yeah. So I taught the King for a Day drag King workshop when we had 46 students come through before COVID shut us down. And what I noticed among the people that took my course was more of an empowerment program, because we take them through a journey of drag and what your persona is going to look like. How is he going to be different from you? And it forces our students to think about the different ways that society uses to police people's gender. And it forced them to open up their minds of, how is your guy going to look? Is he going to follow a typical heterosexual masculinity, or else are you going to embrace all forms of masculinity? So it gave the students, that freedom to express themselves. And it's really interesting because the reason why I love teaching this course is, well, one of the questions we ask in the first day of the class is, what made you take this course? And this is something that's really telling to me, because I had an Asian woman in the class who said to me, I had friends that I knew did drag, but I didn't know I could do it until I saw you. And that about knocked me on my butt, because, growing up as an Asian woman in America, I've gotten used to always being that different person. Like it's normal for me. So I'm used to being that person who doesn't look like anybody else. I look like the person who doesn't fit in all the time. It's normal to me. And, for those of us who walk this life in America, others see that as an obstacle because they don't see anyone else like them up there. So they think automatically, that's not a place that's going to be welcoming to me. And I didn't realize just how much my visibility meant anything, because as a performer, I'm busy worrying about, oh my God, does my makeup look good? Is my music ready? Is my costume on point? Or how am I going to entertain this audience? So never once do I realize, I think about my Asian side, because you can't, it's obvious the second I step on stage, oh, like he's Asian. I don't think about that type of thing. But then when someone brings that out, I'm like, holy, yeah, it does. It is a huge thing. And, to piggyback on what Kareem said, especially during this past election, during the Trump administration, when he was calling coronavirus the Chinese flu, and therefore, impacting the safety of Asian Americans here in America. So I decided to take to my social platform as Jayden, and I threw out, a traditional Asian, outfit in my Ao Dai, Vietnamese traditional outfits, because as a Vietnamese, I'm seen as an Asian American, and there's this otherness that's happening within the Trump administration that makes anyone who is a person of color, under threat of violence. He's impacting our safety. And so I felt it was important for me as, a visible Asian performer here to use my platform to protect my other people of color, especially Asian Americans, because we have this idea that we're the model minority, that we're good citizens, we're not going to put up a fight or whatever, we're not going to stand up for ourselves. And I was like, no, I'm not going to take this hate rhetoric. I'm like, no, I'm not about to let my Asian community suffer like that. So that's why I think it's really important for me to be in the community and use my voice to protect others and help others find their voice.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jayden. I think, again, just the strategic choice to use a cultural practice towards political oppression, right? Is really amazing. And oftentimes the audience that we think for drag and drag performance is limited to a club or some kind of performance venue. But, really finding and creating an audience with your work and your message, I think it's just beautiful to kind of highlight. And again, this is kind of getting to know you. So I'm supposed to have a follow-up question, but I'm like, wow, you did that? Like, I missed that, So I'm just amazed of what you have done, and thanks for sharing it. I also, JP, coming your way, just want to think about what you're embodying right now in terms of performance theory, right? The way in which exposure is so much a part of performance, and not trying to control what people see, and limit what they see. So like the literal act of getting in drag right now as a part of performance and performance theory is not only beautiful, but it brings people into a world. So just how do you approach performance opportunities, the learnings, the sharings, in other ways?
Yeah. Well, there is now I feel like there's different answers to that in the COVID world and in the non-COVID world. In the non-COVID world, I would say JP was really invested in bringing important conversations in a light manner to performance. As drag artists and as any artists, if you're afforded a stage, you're afforded a platform. And it's super important to understand that people are watching you, people are looking at you, right? Whether your platform is through higher education as Kareem, or whether your platform is through teaching and showing the art of kingdom, like Jayden did, or if it's just literally like you're afforded a stage on a club or a venue, folks were looking at me attentively. So I have a very important role to play in which, yes, I'm going to entertain you, but I also want you to leave with, an idea, a thought, something new. And that's why it was so important for me to include some elements of, politics, and or anti-oppression or sex education in my numbers, because people are paying attention. And having a platform and not using the platform is such a waste. Like, I love lip syncing to Beyonce and to Christina Aguilera and to, Jessica Simpson's a little bit, the smash hit from 2003. But I also enjoy, talking about how, for example, one of my favorite numbers is Christopher Columbus number, about how Christopher Columbus isn't the Italian/Spanish hero that many folks want, put him in a pedestal. When in reality, like, there are so many atrocities that he was empowered to do. So yeah, I think that drag allows us to entertain, and it also has allowed me to share some knowledge and deliver some bits of brilliance to my to my audience. And I miss that because digital drag is a little bit harder to do because people can just go exit or Control F4 or whatever it is. Don't do that. Stay with us. But it's so easy for folks to like go and find other means of entertainment. That in digital drag, it's become more of a how can I support my peers? So I am privileged in that I have a full-time job with health insurance. How amazing is that? So I personally don't need digital drag to survive, but part of my goal as someone who is doing digital drag in COVID is to create opportunities for my peers, for my friends, and for, drag artists everywhere, literally everywhere, to be able to make some money and to pay some bills. So, for example, like I'm producing a Shakira show next Tuesday, and I'm taking zero out of that Shakira show. Like, I'm not making any money off the Shakira show, right? All of that money is going to go to my performers who are from Boston, but also like from Miami, from Alaska, from Puerto Rico. And it was really important for me to get artists from Colombia if I'm doing a Shakira show. And my artists from Colombia as well. I'm helping them to be able to, put some bread at the table and pay their landlords the rent, so.
Beautiful. I think as a what you're reminding us is that, again, drag is connected to community and care. And, so all of those C's kind of working together, it is no wonder that you're doing this and other people are doing other things because of that connection and that concern, right? I think it's also a perfect segue. Thank you, Just JP, to my last question. And as I approach this last question, we're going to open it up after we hear from the panelists responding to this question to Q&A. So if you use the question and answer function, we're going to take your questions next. So you can start to think about and populate that really soon. And my last question, and again, it's perfect segue. Thank you, JP. You know, drag at the intersection of COVID, how things have changed, if there have been opportunities, and ending in like, what do you need right now? So I would say for JP, you know, what we may need to support that effort is kind of a link or thing. You know, there may be people interested. So I don't want to speak for you, but I hope you would want people to support that so you can support the other queens. So sharing that information is one way to kind of support and meet a need. But for the other panelists, right, drag at the intersection of COVID and what do you need?
I can say that an opportunity that has shown itself that I had not imagined or that seemed impossible and expensive is global Asian drag. That shows like Jeho that's run out of Chicago or A+ that's run by Emigrate in Brooklyn has performers from Trinidad and has Asian performers from Trinidad and Pakistan and the Philippines and Canada and the UK, right? So this kind of global diaspora of Asian or South Asian drag, depending on the scene, is incredible, right? And these are performers who've been networking with each other and messaging each other on Instagram for a long time and who haven't gotten to meet but get to share the same bill. What I think is really important for people to know about drag and COVID is tip your artists. Watch for their Cash App and Venmo and PayPal information and tip your artists. The thing I miss most is tipping in person. Because tipping is its own ritual in a nightclub. It is, someone just sent me a picture from 2 years ago when I was at a bar in Louisville, Kentucky, tipping the drag queen. And I was I've never seen my body have this much confidence in my life, the way I was standing tipping that queen. Like, just the joy of being face to face with a performer can be really beautiful. And it can be such an intimate interaction to tip. And so I miss the act of in-person tipping, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't tip online. And I hope people continue to be generous, especially, you know, given what JP was saying about paying people's bills. It really does.
Beautiful, beautiful. Jayden?
All right. So performance-wise, I've struggled a lot with COVID because in hindsight, the things I miss the most about performing is connecting with my other performers backstage. We're back there for a minimum at least 2 hours. And I'm not having that connection with other performers. You know, we're just cutting up and laughing and cracking up. But those moments are what I cherish the most with my fellow performers, you know, and it's something that the audience doesn't see. But this, honestly, personally for me, is the best part. Like, yeah, I get my spotlight for my whatever number, but what I cherish the most is my time backstage with my fellow performers, because we all get it. We all are struggling with the same things when we're creating our numbers and stuff, when we're getting ready. We all understand as performers. We don't have to explain to each other. And so I have a very hard time with that. And obviously interacting with the audience during the number, because you know what direction to take your number in based upon how they're interacting with you real time. You can see their body language. You can see their face. You can see the joy you bring to them, and you could see it. And honestly, I think the other performers will understand this. When you're putting something out there and you can tell your audience member that they can see themselves in you. Mm-hmm. And they are themselves authentically 100% in that 1 second, because like Kareem said, when they're tipping that that $1, it's because thank you. I feel seen. You're what I always wanted, and that's what I miss the most. And that's where I've honestly, during COVID, I've taken a step back from my performance during COVID, because it actually, in a ways, makes me feel worse, because I feel disconnected from my community. And those are the highs I'm looking for. And I haven't gotten those highs from digital drag, because I don't have that in-person interactions with my other performers and audience folks. So I've taken this opportunity to actually get to learn me a little better, because for the last 15 years, I've been Jayden. All my first resources went to Jayden, was the priority for 15 years. So I am embracing me and using that to bulk up Jayden. So when I return to stage, Jayden is going to be that much stronger when I return to stage.
Wow. I mean, just so much richness in what all you had to share, and so much beauty in the moment, even if we think about it and blow up the conversation a little bit more to talk about a capitalist society that we live in, and how drag culture can show us a strategic use of capital towards connection and care and affirmation, right? So I've never thought about the tip like that. So it's like, oh, wait a minute, but again, there is a way in which money, in which people native to this country teach us, has medicinal power, right? That their currency is also very healing. But so much of what we associate with it is capitalism, that who would have thunk and should have thunk that, here it is, queer existence, drag culture, showing us how to perform mutual aid as an act of joy, right? And things like that. Wow, that's part 2 of this discussion, and maybe the third book of Kareem's, where we can add some of this thought to it. So thank you. We're going to open it up a little bit and hear from our audience members. There's a couple of questions we already have, but if other folks want to add their questions, this is the time for you to do it. Dayrun J. Miles is sending us all so much love. Thank you, Dayrun J. Miles. And we have a question where I'm supposed to, what is the name of the 1800s drag queen again? And that is William Dorsey Swan is the name. To everyone, what is your go-to karaoke song? You lip sync, or karaoke is live, so it ain't even a lip sync. Oops, I thought they was. Oh, what's your live number? Emily Wilson is asking this question.
I personally like to sing. I like to challenge myself, but if it's my go-to karaoke song, I love singing Stand Up for Love by Destiny's Child. I love singing Tiziano Ferro, for those who know Italian or Spanish. His songs are really good, and they're riding my range, so I don't sound like a chicken. So that would be my responses. What about you, Jayden?
I would have to answer Adam Lambert, because he's my gay boy, glam boy. So anything where I can own the sexy, big personality, that's my go-to, Adam Lambert.
Wow. Kareem.
I don't believe in karaoke. I think it's evil. But if I'm forced, it is My Humps by Fergie.
It's like, I don't believe in karaoke, but if you want me to sing my humps, I will. It's like,
that's all I've got.
Oh, okay. Interesting to know. I think for Nina, it's funny because my lip sync sucks. So I'm like, I would rather sing live and stuff that I can sing live. If I'm drunk, it's, and I'm telling you, where I will try to hit those notes. And the environment has to be warm. And, occasionally the girl does her job. But more blues and jazz. So Nina actually has a version of Stormy Monday that you can find on, if you Google something, I don't know. And then right now, and especially because Anita Baker said don't stream her music, like I'm singing a lot of live Anita Baker because I can't listen to it. But the kind of deeper, richer Black woman voice is typically what I try to emulate. Good question. What are your thoughts on drag representation in media and on screen? Do you have any thoughts or critiques regarding the media perception of drag? Anyone can answer that.
I'll just say very, very quickly, I was doing a drag workshop last week, and one of the participants said, do you think there's room for me as a fat person in drag? And it broke my heart, right? Like drag should not be reproducing the idea that the ideal body is thin or cis or white, right? And so it was a reminder that representation does matter. And you know, we've seen that most of the winners of RuPaul's Drag Race have been thin-bodied people, and so that's my one critique, is that we really are leaving out particular kinds of bodies in popular representation.
Okay, someone else?
I'd like to add that, you know, over the last 15 years while I've been doing this, drag kings have slowly come on with the recent win by Tenderoni for in the latest competition. And prior to that, Landon Cider won Dragula. And, you know, when I first started, I used to have to explain to people what a drag king was, you know, and I was pretty much often the only king in the lineup. And sometimes people wouldn't even watch because they were never exposed to it. So, you know, they're like, oh, this can't be entertaining because all they saw was drag queens. And now it's gotten a lot better with, you know, visibility with the big winners between Tenderoni and Landon Cider, and how much drag has expanded, you know, to include AFAB individuals. And so I'm very happy about that and excited that nowadays, you know, in any city, you have multiple drag kings you can pick from. You know, here in Boston, I'm so excited. My babies have just blown up. You know, so it's great to see the evolution of drag kings and drag kings starting to get the recognition we deserve.
So I just want to acknowledge we had a question that I think you have begun to answer about would any of you consider going on a more inclusive drag show like Dragula. So I think you kind of spoke to their points. I want to acknowledge the question. And even for those who don't know what Dragula is, opportunity to understand that there is more inclusivity, more diverse ideas around drag and media.
Can I add something super quick?
Yeah.
Now that a digital drag is a thing and that you can access lots of other drag shows, not just RuPaul's Drag Race and Dragula and Alaska's Drag Queen Entertainer of the Year entertainment competition, you can also find so many other shows. And I will say that if you are looking to watch drag, look at the lineup. There is no, excuse my French, but there is no fucking excuse for any drag show to only have one Black person, to only have one king, to only have one trans person. Look at the way casting is being done and support the shows that are presenting you with the many facets of drag. You have the power because you have the money. And you should send us that money, but you should only send that money to the shows that are truly showcasing the beauty of drag, especially like fat drag and Black drag and indigenous drag and drag that's not in English. Like there's so much beauty. That's my bit.
All right. Just JP with the bit. There's a couple of quick things we can do, and then we have one final question. JP, I'm pretty sure you know my student, Max Hunter's mother, he says. So Max, if you want to put a message in about your mother's name, we can make sure we connect JP with your mother by name. Also, JP, watching you apply your makeup has been so soothing and inspiring. So makeup tips, if you want to drop those in the chat, JP, people are interested. something that we all can do. People who are asking, what is your Vimeo? What is a Cash App? What is a way to either funnel some funds to you or through you? So if you can drop that in the chat, that is also welcome. And our last question, thank you all for being here today. They said, I'm wondering, in listening about drag community and care, what might you say to someone watching the lunchroom right now, wishing they could be or are seeking their truest self? End us on a good, deep, inspiring moment.
I'm going to give the least satisfactory answer, which is that you don't have to be your truest self. You can be many people, right? And that's something that drag has given me the option to do. Because I'm already performing. Like when I go in front of my classroom, I'm not my truest self. When I talk to my colleagues at work, I'm not my truest self. Right? Like I have to be strategic, right? But drag has empowered me to be strategic about how I want to be seen and taking control of myself and all these places where I'm required to perform. Drag has given me confidence over my body and my style and my clothing and the way I speak in order to bring the different kinds of selves to different people and be more precise about that. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Kareem. Someone else.
I'll say, listen to your heart, because your heart will tell you what brings you joy. You know, if you stop listening to the external voices telling you what you are and everyone else thinks you are, let your heart guide you, because it's your body's way of telling you what feels good to you. And if you let that voice speak loudest, you'll end up being your most authentic self, because you're giving in to what makes you happy. And that's you.
Thank you. Just JP.
I will say, harness the power of makeup. Makeup is for everybody. And the beautiful thing about makeup is that if you don't like it, you can just wipe it off and start again. And we have so many tutorials and this and that, but the beauty of makeup is that it can be like a catalyst for you to feel your best self. It's like my superpower, or like my, how do you call that? Like superhero. It's like my superhero costume. You know how Clark Kent takes off their glasses and now they're Superman? Well, when I put on makeup, then that's my superhero. So engage your superhero through the power of makeup.
Yes, beautiful. I'll just add quickly, again, the core of this conversation was about journeys and storytelling. And I think that's an opportunity to understand that you two are developing your story and you'll go on a journey. When I came out, and I thought it was like the biggest feat of my life in 2009, was a Black lesbian, and she would identify as a badass one-breasted dyke. Miss Alpha Thomas, who said, Mr. Harold at the time, Nina didn't come out. Nina ain't had it coming out. She just appeared. But Mr. Harold at the time, you'll be coming out the rest of your life. And there's a lot of work that we do strategically in art and culture and theater, because it's around identity that is being and becoming. So it is about this journey, and, come out to your truest self, and whatever that means at this moment. There are, safety concerns and things like that. But, you don't have to look like a Nina Fahari today or a Jayden today, but, that doesn't define who you are. I think there's this kind of the visual aspects that kind of affirm our existence. But hopefully the work that we're doing, especially if you're a younger person, but wherever you are on your journey of identity, is making it a little bit easier for you to take time to discover self in your kind of deepest and most meaningful way. I want to thank you all, like truly thank you for giving me the opportunity to get to know you. I want to thank American Repertory Theater for, again, we didn't talk about place, and there always hasn't been a space and a place for us, but American Repertory Theater continues to create opportunities like this. This is not the first. Oberon has been a home for many of you. So again, thank you for continuing to think about us during this time and in these conversations. So thank you all for viewing. Lunch is over. The snacks are going away, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for being here. Mwah.
Thank you.